Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with a video on two world champions playing Bullet for $10,000. What is that about? Well, it is about the super final of the Women's Speed Chess Championships, which was held in June and July 2020. Online, of course, everything is online in these corona pandemic days. The Women's Speed Chess Championships was a very interesting event. Almost all of the elite players were there, including classical world champion Zhu Wenjun, and also the highest rated female player Hou Yifan was there. The highest profile player who did not take part was Alexandra Goryachkina, the challenger of the classical world title. She played Zhu Wenjun in 2019. This was the format of the super final. I got this screenshot from the live broadcast on the chess.com platform. Chess.com was the organizer of this event. The two best players of the Grand Prix played in the Women's Speed Chess Super Final on July 20th, which was International Chess Day. There were three segments, as you can see there: 90 minutes of 5 minutes plus a 1 second increment per move, 60 minutes of 3 in 1, and then 30 minutes of bullet games with 1 minute and 1 second per move. They played for a prize fund of $10,000, $6,500 going to the winner and $3,500 to the runner-up. And the two finalists were two former classical world champions. Alexandra Kostyniuk, on the thumbnail on the right, is the 12th world champion. She held the title from 2008 to 2010. The other finalist, the Ukrainian grandmaster Anna Ushenina, the 14th world champion who held the title from 2012 to 2013. Both players lost their title to Hou Yifan. The match was quite a slugfest. After 27 games played, the score was 13.5, 13.5. And in this video we're going to look at the very last game of the match. Usually it doesn't make any sense to comment on a bullet game, but in this case let's have a look at this last game. When following the game live, everything goes so fast, and even the two grandmaster commentators, who were Robert Hess and Anna Muzychuk, they just don't have the time to make up their minds about the position, let alone explain it to the viewers. So now let's dissect the game and we'll see how grandmasters play bullet. Anna Ushenina was white and Alexandra Kostyniuk was black. The commentary by grandmasters Hess and Muzychuk was great, but I have one little quibble, and that is the pronunciation of the name Ushenina by Robert Hess. He kept calling her Ushenina, and it's really Ushenina, as I have been taught by a Ukrainian person, and he could have asked his co-host Anna Muzychuk, who's also from Ukraine, for the proper pronunciation of Ushenina's name. That really bugs me that people don't make an effort to pronounce names correctly. I pronounce a lot of names on my channel, and I'm sure I pronounce a lot of them very incorrectly, but at least I try. Okay, let me get off my soapbox and let's look at this game. Ushenina opened with a d-pawn. Knight f6 from Kostyniuk and knight f3. b6 from Kostyniuk. Bishop g5, bishop b7. Black plays a Queen's Indian setup against the move d2, d4 on the first move. Knight bd2 and knight e4 from Kostyniuk. A rare move in this position and not the best one. But in a bullet game, this is not very important. Ushenina took. Bishop takes, knight d2. Bishop back to b7. e4, h6, bishop back to e3, and d6. White has an impressive pawn center and an advantage in development. a4 from Ushenina, a5. Ushenina gave a check. Knight interposed, castling kingside, and c6, breaking the annoying pin on the knight. Bishop back to d3, g6, and f4. Queen c7 and f5. It's always hard to figure out quickly which pawn to push to start an attack. e4, e5 was a good alternative, says the engine. And now g5 from Kostyniuk. It's generally good to keep lines closed when your opponent is attacking and your king is still in the middle. So g5 keeps lines closed. c4. Bishop g7 and king h1, and that is a typical bullet move. Not a very good move, but ensuring that Bishop takes d4 or queen b6 or queen c5 will never come with check, which reduces tactical possibilities for black. c5, opening up the bishop and putting pressure on d4. Black has equalized. The position is equal. e5, and here c takes d4 is the best move as pointed out by the engine. And after bishop takes d4, there's d takes e5, and that wins a pawn for Kostyuk. But after e5, which is a bad move, Kostyuk did not take on d4, she took on e5. And now d5 was played, and white is also a pawn down in this variation, but the bishop on b7 is now blunted. Not much is happening in the coming move, so let's go through those quite quickly. Knight f6 was played on move 18, knight e4, a pair of knights was swapped, queen d6, queen b3, bishop f6, rook ae1 and bishop c8. That bishop is looking for a better diagonal. Queen c2, bishop d7 and b3. Here Kostyuk castled queenside, queen f2, h5, and here is an interesting moment. And Grandmaster Robert Hess in the commentary saw it. He saw that white can play a very nice move here, b4, because if you take that pawn, then there is a5. And you should not really take that pawn, because then bishop takes c5, attacking the queen, queen a6 for example, and then rook a1, and white's attack is very strong. Great winning chances for white, especially in a bullet game. Attacking is easier than defending. But after h5, Ushenina did not play b4, she played queen e2, she did not see it. g4, rook c1, rook d to g8, and bishop g1. As my friend FIDE-master Erik de Haan tends to say here, white is lying down in the hedges. h4, and Kostyuk has a series advantage and a strong attack on the king side against that king on h1. Rook f to d1, rook h5, rook back to f1, and rook g to g5. Kostyuk is ganging up on the f-pawn. Queen d3 here from Ushenina to protect the f-pawn once more. Here Ushenina had 17 seconds left, plus a 1 second increment per move. Kostyuk still had 42 seconds and a better position. h3 and g3, the same theme as we saw earlier. If you are under attack, you want to keep lines closed at all costs. Rook back to g8 and rook b1, and now we see both players frantically make quick moves. This goes on for a while till white drops the f-pawn. Steinitz and Botvinnik would turn in their graves if they saw two former world champions play this way. Bishop g5, as we'll see, Ushenina just decides to wait. She doesn't see an active plan, while Kostyuk is regrouping her pieces to win the white f-pawn. It's quite interesting to see how she does that. Ushenina keeps moving her rook, bishop h6, rook d1, bishop g7, rook d to e1, and bishop f8. All played very quickly. Everything is played quickly at this stage. Rook d1, king c7, rook back to e1, queen f6, another rook move, and now rook g to g5, winning the f-pawn, which is now attacked 4 times. So it looked like black was just shuffling, but she had an idea. She wanted to win that f-pawn. Ushenina played the rook again, and bishop takes f5, winning a second pawn, but in fact giving away most of her advantage, as now white gets an opportunity for counterplay. And this is a great move from Ushenina. She took on f5 with the rook, a real grandmaster move. She gives up an exchange, seeing immediately that she needs to preserve the bishop on e4 to have any chance for a counterplay. She has her eyes set on pushing the d-pawn and infiltrating with the queen and bishop on the queen side. Very nice move, rook takes f5. If she had taken with the bishop instead, then rook takes f5 and white is just 2 pawns down for nothing. But after taking with the rook, she gets a chance. Giving up the exchange, Kostyuk took it, and now d6 check. That pawn was taken, that is now 3 pawns up for black, but now white can infiltrate with the queen. Taking with the queen instead of taking with the pawn is not so good, because bishop takes f5 wins a piece. So e takes d6 was played, and there comes queen d5. Queen e6, the queen infiltrates with check. King d8 is the only legal move. White picks up a pawn. King e7, and now a very strange move, queen b5. Anna Muzychuk said in the live broadcast, was that a mouse slip? It must have been, as this move doesn't make any sense. Taking that pawn is probably what Ushenina had meant to play here. But queen b5 was played, at least it's not a blunder, it doesn't give anything away. Sometimes mouse slips are a disaster, not in this case. Rook f3 was played by Kostyaniuk, and Ushenina is still not prepared to part with her prized bishop on e4. She recognizes that she needs to get counterplay at all costs. So bishop takes f3 was not played. Instead, queen takes a5 was played by Ushenina, picking up another pawn, and she has her hopes on that passed a pawn. Rook takes b3 and queen a8, preparing the way for the a pawn. Queen d7, a5 and f5, kicking the bishop. Bishop c6, said Anna Muzychuk. That is possible. Then rook b8 is a very nice move, as pointed out by the engine. I'm sure this would not have come on the board. It's a typical engine move. You cannot take the rook because of queen takes c6 check and checkmate on the next move. Nice variation. After f5, bishop c6 was not played, but bishop d5 was played by Ushenina. And now f4, and that move deserves a question mark objectively. The engine sees that the attack does not decide the game straight away and indicates that black needs to improve some pieces first. It says bishop g7 is the move here. But of course Kostyaniuk had no time to think and keeps going forward. She played f4. G takes and g3, threatening g2, so you have to take that. H takes, and now rook takes g3, and that is a blunder. But again, not easy to see, and Ushenina did not see it. The engine points out that white can win here with f takes e5. And if you then play bishop g7, for example, there is e6. And when the queen moves, there is rook f1, and white has a winning attack against the black king. So in this position, rook takes g3 is a blunder, h2 or bishop g7 are better moves, and that keeps the balance, says the engine. But Kostyaniuk took on g3, and now a6 was played, f takes e5 was missed by Ushenina. h2, bishop f2, rook g1 check. Ushenina had 14 seconds left on the clock, and Kostyaniuk only 8 seconds. Bishop takes, h takes g1, queen check, king takes and queen g4 check. And the attack looks very strong. Is there a checkmate? Both grandmasters Hess and Muzychuk saw within a second that in this position queen and rook cannot checkmate the white king by force. The king has many protecting pieces around it, even though some are quite far away. But they can come back to the aid of the king in only one move. And that is what Ushenina played here. Bishop g2 interposing, queen g3 attacking the rook. So rook f1 was played, queen e3 check, and we saw a move repetition. Was this game going to end in a draw? After rook f2, queen e1 check, Ushenina did not want to go for a draw. She played bishop f1, finding the winning move. Black's attack is gone, and white's a-pawn is still there and will decide this game. And see what happened here. Kostyaniuk played rook h2. Grandmaster Hess said that she might have meant rook h1, but that doesn't save black either, because that rook can be taken with the queen. And you can even take with the king, because after queen takes, queen g2, white is also winning. But rook h2 was played, and that just gives up that rook. Ushenina did not take it straight away. She played queen b7 check, and it looked like this was a pre-move by Ushenina to gain a second on the clock. And again, that's a good way to play in bullet. Give a safe check as a pre-move and you will win a second. King e8, and now she saw that that rook is just hanging. Queen e3 check, rook f2, queen g3 check was the last move of the game for black, because queen g2 was played by Ushenina and Kostyaniuk resigned. So Anna Ushenina was the overall winner of the Women's Speed Chess Championship event held in June and July 2020. Great entertainment for chess lovers around the world in these difficult corona pandemic times. And I hope you enjoyed seeing this bullet game played by two grandmasters in slow motion, with a chance to actually see what was going on. And I hope you learned something from it for your own blitz and bullet games. Another screenshot from the live broadcast. After Black just played at blunder Rook H2, you see Alexandra Kosenyuk there in bottom left. She has just played that move. Bushedina is about to take the rook. And the expression on Robert's face is priceless. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.